Welcome to the Career Ready podcast. Learn about resumes, cover letters, LinkedIn, interviewing, and all things you need to be career ready with the Career Service Center at College DuPage. I'm your host, Pierre Michiels. I'm excited to have two guests with me today, Teri Schmidgall and Edward Hurd. Both are career counselors from the Career Service Center or Career Services Office at Northern Illinois University. Our conversation revolves around transferring, but more specifically, using that time to reflect on career goals in different transition phases. Thank you both for being here.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah. So I'm excited. I am a double Husky. I've graduated from NIU twice. So excited to have both of you here. And I didn't get to know you guys when I was a student. So if you don't mind, can both of you share just a quick introduction, or as we would like to say, your elevator pitch?
Sure. I'm Edward Hurd. I'm one of the career counselors at Northern Illinois University's Career Services. I'm passionate about helping students find their way not only through college, but throughout all of life, specifically their career path. It's a journey, and I love walking alongside students as they figure life out. I provide holistic counseling, so I address various needs in addition to career-related concerns. I'm glad to be here today.
And I'm Teri Schmidgall. I'm a career counselor with NIU Career Services. I also work with students individually in individual career counseling, typical topics of career decision making, major exploration, career exploration, and then further on in figuring out how to get experience and also getting ready for graduate school. I've been at NIU for 19 years, and we have a wealth of experience between the two of us, and we're excited to talk about your transition.
All right, thank you both. I'm excited to have this conversation with you. Obviously, this is a conversation, a field I'm passionate about as well. So as we get started here, just kind of thinking of that student journey, and early on, many will choose a major, but they're not even realizing that they're choosing a major at that time, or just kind of going through those processes. And then as life goes on, their experiences, they're starting to realize their different academic and career goals. But do you have any suggestions on how students can get a head start on gaining that clarity of this process?
So one of the things that, good question. So one of the things that I usually try to frame with students in this process is you're spending more time on this than probably anything you've spent in your life so far. So, and these are big decisions. So one of the kind of a model that I like is if you're thinking about a major and then you're thinking, well, what am I going to do with that major? That is one approach, meaning what is the career related to that major? Some students like that approach because they can narrow in on a major that they're interested in, that they want to learn, the content that they want to learn, that they're hopefully excited to go to that 8 a.m. class, that they'll be able to get through some of the courses that maybe aren't as interesting because they have they're starting to get a goal in mind. And then some students take it the opposite way. They have a career in mind, and then they're going through this process of trying to figure out what is the major that's going to get them there. So some students would take that approach like a little bit more broadly in, I have a major in mind and then I'll figure out the career. And other students will have a career in mind and then I got to figure out the major. So in terms of getting a head start or getting started on that process, we kind of use a little model of exploration and then getting more specifically into planning and then getting more specifically into pursuing. And pursue means do is the thing that I always like to say. So the exploration process is something where you're really doing self-reflection and self-assessment in some cases and looking at what do I like, interests, skills, values, personality style would be some factors to think about, and actually spending some time in exploring, what are your strengths? What are you bringing to the table? and also hopefully getting the chance to talk to people in these fields that you may be interested in or as part of an exploration process. And then I guess when you say get a head start or thinking about that early, it doesn't just happen. You have to
Hmm.
be involved in that process. You have to think about what's important to me. What do I want to get out of my education? Um, how am I spending my time? And what kind of relationships do I need to make? What kind of connections do I need to make? And as you're getting, if you're finishing up time at the community college, also looking ahead to, what am I going to do to continue this exploration? Excuse me, if I'm still in that mode, and getting connected to people at that next school that are going to help me, move on from exploration to more the actual planning and the pursuing.
I would add to that, I believe students who are transferring and deciding on their majors or career paths, important thing is to stay curious. So often in the transition, students can get overwhelmed with the transition or what's going on in this new space, overwhelmed or excited. There'll be a lot of things that will demand their attention or that they're interested in that they want to try out. But with regard to majors and careers, it's just to stay curious and to have conversations with faculty, staff, students, and so forth, and to really become aware of what energizes them. So that's what I mean by stay thoughtful. Because if they have different experiences and they've already had some experiences, they can begin to put it all together, realize what energizes me and all. And those thoughts, those inner conversations and those outward conversations with others can direct them toward a specific major or help to concretize a choice that they've been really considering for some time.
Yeah, all great information. I want to throw one thing in here, and I think you guys are talking about this, but the word that really comes to my mind as I hear you speaking is the idea of exposure, right? Exposure to these different things, exposure to different classes, right? Talking
Mm-hmm.
about, oh, I really enjoy this class, and now let me, think about the future, how that class could line up. But
Mm-hmm.
so oftentimes, sometimes we take like safe classes, easy classes, or like we're living in our bubble,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and so just that's what I'm hearing you guys talk about is going outside your bubble, and then incorporating some of these other things as you move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And also defining your bubble. So bubbles aren't inherently bad, right?
Hmm.
But I understand the concept, but
Yeah.
defining. And as what you said, Pierre, I think it's important. You don't have to walk a straight line, a straight line. That's not how most careers go, straight line. And so when you take when students take their set classes, as they should, meet with academic advisors to stay on track because college is time and money. So that's important. But also what you said of going outside and exploring, checking out other courses within their major or minor, or even if some are still completing prereqs, can give them exposure to other areas of interest, uh, work wise or academic wise, that will allow them to continually update their decision making. So we often emphasize to students that career decision making isn't a one time thing, but it's an ongoing process.
Yes, so I think that's a great way to transition into our next question here. Right, it's an ongoing process, right? So, me speaking from a community college perspective, we have students that are then transferring off to the four-year school, going off to NIU or wherever they're going, and this is a great time to do some of that reflection because it is that ongoing process. So, what are your tips for students that are going through this transition phase?
So this is one of my favorite ideas here, and it is a good time for reflection if it's finishing up potentially at the community college and going on to another institution. It's time to give yourself a moment, and we have spring break coming up momentarily here, depending on when someone's listening to this, and sit down with yourself, have a cup of coffee, and really think about what did I accomplish and what am I proud of from my time at the community college or what I've done for the last 2 or 3 years, right? And that reflection uh, on your accomplishments, it could be academic accomplishments, it could be, um, your GPA, if that's what you're proud of, for example. It could be leadership activities, all these things that you may have done, or it could be work. Completely acknowledging that, maybe I was taking classes part time, I've been working this whole time, but, giving yourself credit for what you accomplished in this first part of your educational journey. And we might say this a bunch of times today, but like write it down. Reflect on it, but don't just think about it. Actually document it. And this is the first time I'm saying this today, but it might be a matter of it's time to update your resume now. So before you get ready to transfer or before you go on to that next institution, so those accomplishments from your community college time are fresh on your mind. And you wrote some good bullet points on the resume. You reflected on the things that you did from your community college. It's also going to be a good time to, like you said before, kind of reassess your goals. What are you proud of from the time at the community college? What skills did you develop from that time at the community college? And, updating the resume is a way to do that. Maybe jotting down some interview answers and, your elevator pitch. What are you bringing with you? That's the thing that Edward and I talked about yesterday. What are you bringing with you from your community college experience to this next part of your educational experience? And it's also a time, if you are doing some of that reflection, and sometimes that's hard because you might say, well, I didn't accomplish as much as I want to. So that could be some motivation for this next part. If you're transferring to the four-year institution, what are you looking out for? What are you really going to be intentional about seeking out? What are the skills that you want to develop? What are the competencies that you want to develop? And you're fully formed with what you've already done in, the other parts of your life and in your previous education. But not fully formed. Sorry, you're still information. You're still forming, but you're not leaving that behind. It's coming with you, and you're going to build on it hopefully at that next institution.
Agree. Take inventory.
Mhm.
It's an ongoing inventory. It should be an honest inventory. So often, it's students come upon more so than often what I lack rather than what I have. So that can be both encouraging and discouraging, depending on which direction they tend to lean into during their reflection time. But they don't have to reflect alone. So that reflection, as Teri said, can be over a cup of coffee by themselves or with someone else, mentor, uh, professor, certainly career services. And that inventory will allow them to maximize the opportunities then at the university. That's why that's so important. And it's all right if that reflection, if that inventory, self inventory is, I totally don't know what's going on. I totally don't know what I want to do. I'm lost. That's a great assessment because it is what it is. Now, take advantage of resources and we'll walk alongside you.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a lot better to do that reflection and say, I'm lost, as opposed to just go through the motions and not realize you're lost and not
Mhm.
do anything about it. So I love hearing what you guys are talking about as far as really assessing where you're at, what you've liked, what you haven't liked, what you're good at, maybe
Mhm.
those gaps, those things you need to be working on. And then tr tying it right back into something you mentioned, Teri, using the resume as part of this process. It's very common that we even as professionals don't update that resume,
Mhm.
right? But to kind of make it a practice. And you mentioned, the question was about, transferring here, but then again, Teri, you mentioned the idea of spring break, right?
Mhm.
Or then, summer break, winter break, the end of the semesters, like these different mile markers, not just in our life, but like through our year are really
Right.
good times to be doing this. So I appreciate you guys throwing all that in there.
Right. It is a good, I mean, spring break, if you have one, is great. If you are transferring and you're going to be like a traditional transfer, possibly starting in the fall of the next year, you know, hopefully your summer is busy with preparing for that transfer. And but before you get into all of that with like the orientations and getting to advising meetings and all these other things are moving, of course, if that's on your plate, maybe it's time, that what would that be? Mid-May, late May, where you can maybe spend some of that time on the updating and kind of reassessing. That would be a good time if you have it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've been talking about kind of this reassessment more so on that exploration stage. But at some point, we have to transition from the exploration to really planning for that career readiness and going from there. So do you have specific steps within that you would encourage? And does NIU have any programs or supports to go along with this?
If you've been through the explore, it isn't always sequential. That is also something that we're important to
Yeah.
kind of point out. You might feel like, well, I did all the exploration. Now I'm ready to move on to the next step. Okay. But if you did all that exploration and it made you change your mind about something, then you have to come up with a new plan. So, thinking about the planning stage, one of the things that I really try to emphasize is making intentional choices to grow your career, grow your plan. And so if when we're talking about the planning stage, I'm not saying, you're applying for all these opportunities or internships just yet. It's more getting familiar with um, what is necessary for the career that you're interested in, what are the skills that are necessary for the career that you're interested in, what are the ones that you already have, or what are the ones that you need to work on. And how do you figure that out is you look at career information. So there's tons of tools and resources to tell you, this is what is required for a certain career. And how is that part of your plan? Well, you need to know that so you can make choices to develop those skills. So, looking at career information, there are all kinds of tools. Career Services has tools for occupational research. We even have a tool that provides simulations where students can test out what it's like to work in a certain field through video lessons. We have data about what alumni are doing in their careers. And one of my favorite bits of planning is actually looking at job postings 2, 3 years before you're going to be applying for those jobs. Because you want to get familiar with what are the qualifications. I mean, real concrete qualifications. What do they say? What do employers say that they want? And that's something for you to have in your mind so that you can plan for getting those skills or getting those qualifications. If you wait until January of your year that you're going to graduate in May, you may have not been compiling those qualifications. So that is, to me, it's one of the really concrete things that you can do to plan. Um, I'll just throw one more in here and then I'll let Edward talk. But the other part of planning is getting advice. So um, talk to your advisors, talk to your faculty members, and then depending on the institution that you go to, you may have access to employers. So not just looking at job postings, but actually getting a chance to talk to employers before you apply, before you're in the internship search, before you're in the full-time job search. Because you can come to a career fair, you can ask them questions, how do I prepare myself to be the best candidate for this internship next semester, and getting it straight from them. What do they specifically say that they're looking for, and how can you be the strongest candidate when the time comes? So we host most institutions host career fairs. So we have events like internship and job fairs. We have some industry-specific fairs where you would be able to use that more as a kind of an exploration and planning activity. And then maybe the next semester you're going as an applicant. And we also try to coach you through those conversations and have some resources for that as well.
And you emphasize that it's not all sequential, none of this. So exploration can lead to planning, planning can lead to further exploration, and so forth. And we emphasize for students and to faculty that all of that is normal. All of it is normal and healthy. And the important thing is to increase knowledge, and that will help with confidence. Because confidence, lack of confidence, will keep students from often exploring and planning. And one thing my colleague mentioned earlier about writing it down. So in this day and age where you write it down or typing in on one of your apps is really important for students to do, to type in their goals or what they've learned from mentors or from their own research and so forth, own skills, their own reflections and so forth. Because often when I ask students about their goals, students I've seen several times, they've forgotten them already. They just maybe answered my question during a session or during one of our signature events, and I spoke with them there, and they were telling me what they wanted to do or the moves they've made. And then next time I meet them, I'll ask them about what they told me, and they've already forgotten. So writing it down is recording it, I should say, is very healthy part of the exploration and planning stage. But the main thing is confidence. Through the research, through the different experiences mentioned and others that we will mention, students build confidence, and confidence goes a long way for them to have the stamina and perseverance to continue in their own career development.
Sounds good. Yeah. So you're talking about a lot of different things, and early on, Teri, even an earlier question, you said it's all about doing, right? And there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot that, you know, you guys are just talking about doing different things and, taking in some of these different pieces to help you do that better. Uh, so thinking of that doing, right? Um, again, coming from a community college, our students are then transferring, and we'll say they completed their associates here. So now they're transferring into their junior year. And I'm going to say that they're in a disadvantage. Like, your students at NIU, if they were there as a freshman and sophomore, they're used to the rhythm of the campus. And okay, they know that this is when the fair is coming up. This is what's going on. A student transferring in doesn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when a student is entering NIU or some other school in their junior year, what suggestions would you have for them to hit the ground running?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll lead off by saying that when students come in, as you said, Pierre, you feel like the clock is ticking. I got to get moving. And some, by the way, don't feel like the clock is ticking. So they need to be reminded the clock is ticking. And everybody's situation is different. But I always make the assumption from my experience with students and also by appreciating the value of time and money that most students want to get out in that 4 year period. They completed two, or maybe they completed one, but in total they want four, maybe to 5 years, depending on the program or depending on if they're working or so forth. And then some are open, but most want to finish within that time frame. So clock is ticking. So I always suggest the students to hit the ground running, as you say, to set up an appointment with career services during their first semester, preferably within the first month in their first semester. And we tell students what they should attend or do, and also what they can afford to miss. So a lot is coming their way in terms of resources and, hey, come join this organization. These are the priorities from different departments on campus and different professionals on campus because there are a lot more resources for their stage of their academic careers, relevant to their stage of academic careers, their advanced stage. So they'll be inundated with all of that. But as professionals, we can help them breathe easier by laying it out for them and helping them with their input because it's particular to their goals to set out a roadmap for the rest of their time, but also just for the semester that they're coming in on. Practical things they could do is and always updating the resume, the LinkedIn profile, learning more about the major that they come in uh, desiring, or they've already indicated that major, or that they're still exploring. Most students, I find, even transfer students, don't know much about their major. They're hoping that it clicks within a course. And we know that many of the courses, even beyond the general education requirements, aren't all as specific as to what students will eventually do in their career. They're just they're requirements that will build into the competencies that students need for their particular career, but they don't have a grasp of the whole. They're just looking at the pieces. We can help them look at the whole. And then I would also say, when they come in, or whenever they come in, at whatever level, uh, they don't have to have it all figured out when they first get there on day one. The most important thing is just to take some proactive steps, and that will get them well on their way.
So same idea. But and Edward, the reason I chuckled a little bit was Edward said that sometimes they don't know a lot about their major. And one of the things that if you are coming in and you're coming in as a junior, if you haven't already, whatever institution you're going to, it's looking at your department's website, the academic department's website, and what do they got going on? Because those are going to answer a bunch of your questions. I don't mean the classes. I don't mean the academics. I mean, do they have a student organization related to that major? Do they have professors that give talks about, their research or their career, or do they have alumni come and do different events for students in that program? Do they have a listserv? Do they have a Facebook? Do they have Instagram? So all of these things are, I would say, on the top of the list of it, kind of getting enmeshed and involved in your major would be something I would encourage a junior to do, or a transfer student or fresh transfer. And then just be a little bit more concrete. And this one is kind of a time pressure type of thing, is if your program, or finding out if your program has options related to internships. So you may have done an internship at your community college, but you can do multiple internships. And we won't go off on a tangent too much on, of course, internship is an educational experience, but it's also a career tryout. But it's also increasingly important in the type of experience that an employer is looking for to hire you for full time. So see what kind of options are related to internships for the major that you're coming into. Some departments have dedicated people that work with you related to internships actually in your academic area. Some of it's through colleges, some of it's through the career services. And we would have career services, for example, at NIU, we would have access to, some of the data of where students have gotten jobs before, where students have done internships before. And then we also have, Edward and I like to say we have the water, meaning we have the fairs, we have the events that you can attend to actually meet these employers. And then we also have the internship and job posting system where you'd be able to look at those opportunities as well. Related to that, I always tell a client I'm good at overwhelming you. So I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, but some of this is you being involved enough in your career success and journey so that you don't get to the couple of weeks before you graduate and say, I didn't know. I didn't know this was out there. I didn't know this event was happening. I didn't know I had this opportunity. But getting familiar with the the platforms of your new school. This could be the career technologies. It could be, the system that you use for scheduling appointments. It's all these things that you'll just feel a little bit more, like Edward said, confident. You'll feel more comfortable when that semester starts if you're already started, figuring out how those systems work. And then just the last thing is, I know we have a lot on our plates and time and all of that, but all these things that the new institution have put together for you to participate in, try to participate in them. Again, understanding if someone's working in those types of things or challenges or transportation or whatever, but if there's admissions things happening, if there are orientation things happening, and then as the semester starts, there's going to be new student things. Try to get to those things, because again, with potentially your career counselor or your academic advisor, you can take in all of these opportunities and you start evaluating which ones are going to be the most helpful for you, which ones are going to help you develop the connections that you want to develop, the skills that you want to develop for your career plan.
Yeah, no, all good information, right? Mentioning not wanting to get overwhelmed, right? Hearing all these things, I'm getting a little overwhelmed,
I
right?
know.
But it, you know, it, as you talk, I also find comfort because you're mentioning resources, right? So what
Mhm.
that means is you're not going at this alone, right?
Right.
NIU, whatever four-year school has those resources. And coming from a career office, I'm going to circle right back to what Edward said. Make an appointment with the career services office. Sit down with them so then they can help you create a roadmap, especially because they know as far as those career events and things that are happening on campus, what are those priorities? What should you be doing? What
Mhm.
are those okays to miss? Because we don't have to hit everything,
Right.
right? We don't have to do it perfectly. We just have to make sure we're getting the right things that we need at that time. So plenty that four-year school is going to be offering. Just make sure you're tapping into those resources. So Teri, I want to circle back to the idea of internships, right? You brought this up.
Mhm.
Internships, extremely important, right? We talk about that here at COD. We want people to be doing internships early and often. We know many of our students don't do internships. When they do them at COD, right, they're far ahead of a lot of students when they are transferring. But that's normally not the case, right? I'm guessing at NIU, most of your freshmen, sophomores aren't doing internships.
Mhm.
Um, so when someone is entering that internship search process, and maybe they're feeling behind, what recommendations would you have for them?
So it's all kind of related to some of the reflection too. Is before you jump in all of this, you got to make sure you got your tools in your toolbox ready. So some of the tools in the toolbox things is, like I said, updating your documents, having the resume updated to wherever you are right now, having your LinkedIn account created and updated and presentable so that when you drive people to it, it's representing where you are. Um, Knowing how to use the platforms is going to be important. And whatever institution you go to, they're going to have an internship and job posting platform. And what are all the bells and whistles that are included in that platform? How can you have it working for you? So ours is called Huskies Get Hired. You could set up alerts. So you set up the parameters of the internship that you're looking for and geographic location, how many, the industry, those types of things. You put all of that into the platform, and then, if any new postings come in related to that, it'll email you. So you wouldn't have to be logging in every day necessarily to look at those opportunities. Like I said, seeing what kind of internships are related to within your major. And I know I said this already, but sometimes a student will find their way to us and we will go, well, you got to go back to your major, you got to go back to your academic department. And have you done that? And they're like, no. I'm like, oh, well, okay, then, talk to your academic department. And they may have internships actually posted on their website. They may have a coordinator that has facilitating those internship conversations. And then sometimes they may also even have their own events as well that are specific to that major, that academic discipline. Um, in terms of beginning the process, it's what are you looking for? Like, what do you want to learn? What are you trying to get out of that experience, and having those goals for yourself already clear in your mind. So um, that's where I go back to. I've already looked at job postings. I've already done all this career research. I know that I'm looking for an internship that's going to help me develop a certain competency. And then you spend your time looking for those types of opportunities, or trying to make connections to employers in those types of fields. Um, and then kind of the last thing is sometimes you have to create your own opportunity. So we have postings, we have fairs, but a lot of the job search market these days is networking, and being in the right place at the right time, getting to know people, accessing your alumni from your community college and from your four-year institution, um, making friends with your faculty, making sure that you're maybe hanging out with those student organizations. There's going to be people that are ahead of you that maybe are seniors getting ready to graduate. They may have already done an internship. And if you're not talking to them, if you're not, say, hey, I'm in the internship search mode too, you're not going to know about an opportunity. And I know, Pierre, you probably talk about this with your candidates too, but it's not enough to just sit on websites. And
Mhm.
um, everybody can see those internships. Everybody can see those jobs, and literally the whole world does. So you need to be leveraging, the connections that you may have at your institution, the people in your academic departments, your academic advisors, your faculty, your sororities, fraternities. All these types of people are part of your internship search strategy. And your family as well, of course. Your connections, your friends, they're all going to be people that are going to be able to kind of keep an ear open for you, and an eye open ear open for you, and let you know about opportunities. But then it's going to be on you to apply. It's going to be on you to make the connections and follow through. And again, career services, resources can help you with those more specific parts of the application process and interview preparation, those types of things as well.
Sure, and just as we said earlier, in adding to this is the whole of the acronym Plan, Explore, Pursue. For some, this time of internship and job is the pursue, is the do, as Teri mentioned. And students who come in, especially transfer students, who, as you said, Pierre, they often feel behind. And they indeed may be, but most of the time, I remind them that they're not behind. And that part of that reflection or assessment, that's why it's important to meet with career services, because we can tell you whether that's true or not, or give you a balanced perspective. Students who come in as transfer students are always bringing something to the table. I really say that of even true freshmen who have never been to college. They all have value, and they bring something. It's a matter of how they see things. So often they don't know what they have and what they're bringing to the table. And we remind them, and we remind them what they should add to their plate, ultimately their resume, essentially, different experiences, whether it's internships, jobs, other uh, experiential learning activities, volunteerism. Part-time jobs can often be just as good as internships, depending on what those jobs are, if it's related to a major. But even from the part-time jobs, they are developing transferable skills that are valuable. It's also important for students to not compare themselves with others. You may have other students who've had 3 internships, or who have that one choice internship. So the main point is to make some progress, at least to make some progress from every step of the way, from the time the transfer student comes onto campus, make some progress moving forward. And that will strengthen them in their career development, because it's all about development. And what I would say that when the students come in, they can start making moves and should start making moves. Hence the networking piece. Often students are applying to internships now. I encourage them to apply to get ready for internships to come. So that networking piece and meeting with faculty or coming to the fairs, keeping the contact information cards, contact information, LinkedIn contacts with the employers at the fair who they really like, and then maybe the student is not ready or qualified for that internship or full-time job now, but by networking and maintaining a network, not just meeting people, but by maintaining a professional network, they set themselves up for the internship next year or the job 2 years from now. So there's a lot of things students are doing now and also for later. So just improving the skills will through the different experiences will help them get those better opportunities, whether internships or jobs. Progress, not comparison alone.
Yeah. No, I love that idea of just make progress, right? Because we're all at different stages. So just whatever right step is for you, make a little bit of progress. And, maybe we don't know what that right step is, but as long as it's a little step forward, right? That's a good thing. And then build off of that for another step of progress. And I'm not surprised both of you mentioned the idea of connections, the network, right? That is something that we keep emphasizing, through our office as well, right? Especially when we think of this current market and the need of those connections, and then not just creating a connection, but maintaining that connection for the future. I loved how you threw that in there, Edward, because a lot of times we think, oh, I'm collecting business cards, and then we have a stack of business cards or, whatever, however we're tracking contacts these days. And then it's like, oh, I talked to that person years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I can't reach out to them now, right? So
Yeah.
maintaining that is so important. Um, so then, as we're talking about these relationships with employers, employers also have their own expectations. All right. So if it is a student transferring, it's really just a student looking to move outside of education into that workforce. Are there just any trends that you're noticing with employer expectations?
Well, the thing that we looked at is, I don't think it's new, but it's becoming more, even more important, is the employer expectation of relevant experience from a candidate, from a student, as part of their application process. So, um, meaning, yes, they maybe a lot of employers would like to see an internship on someone's resume, but like Edward just said a couple minutes ago, not all students are going to have time or resources or the ability to, secure an internship or do the internship that they want to do for whatever circumstance. But no matter what, an employer is looking for some type of related experience. So it could be an internship, like it could be the volunteer experience. They're looking for leadership competencies. They're looking for I would say, how would you leverage the part-time job that you've had, right? That's still valuable, but it's not automatic that an employer is going to understand that. So you need to be able to talk about, what did I accomplish at that job? Did I get a promotion? Did I train people? Did I supervise people? It's not, and again, also knowing that not everybody's going to be a manager or a supervisor. But getting it's seeking out and getting experience in the industry or the field that you aspire to, and being able to basically like prove, yeah, this is what I really want to do, and I've already done some of it. So academics is a part of that, of course. Your training in your major, but the internship experiences, the relevant student organization, the leadership from your other student organizations, and having proof that you've attended to the competencies and the skill sets that they're looking for. So it's not just my platitude is your major's not tattooed on your forehead. It's how have you applied what you've learned from your major and from these experiences, and you're going to be able to communicate that to the employers through your interview answers, through your resume, through your LinkedIn profile, and they're looking more for the proof of these skills. So, not to go off on too far of a tangent, but in our language, we're talking about skills-based hiring. So they're not looking at GPA as much as they used to. So we still want you to be good students, of course. We still want you to be good students, but they're looking more at whether you had that industry experience, whether you've had those relevant experiences, or an internship in that field, or a leadership experience related to your field. And that trend will only continue because ultimately, when it comes down to you wanting to work for an employer, you have to prove how you can meet their need and literally prove it. And the proof is in your stories from your experience and having examples from your academics, having examples from your leadership, your volunteer, from your part-time work, from your on-campus job. That's another thing that we try to encourage students. You're really gaining competencies and skills from, the things that you're doing through whether it's paid or unpaid experiences and how you're going to communicate that. So that would be the biggest thing I'd say related to trends. But it's also you control all of that. That's the other thing that is kind of a Teri Schmidgall approach. Like you control what you're putting together as your package as a candidate, and being able to be proud of the things that you've accomplished, being able to be proud of your resume, being proud of the things that you accomplished, whether it's your grades or your leadership, and employers. There's competencies that they're looking for across the board when you're in a very specific major, whether it's technical skills or softwares or platforms or languages, all those types of things. They're going to be able to evaluate your level of skill related to that. But some of these other things like communication, leadership, teamwork, understanding of, diversity and equity, those types of things, you want to have examples from your experience to be able to share with those employers and be able to prove it.
So all of those that Teri mentioned, the different transferable skills, some of those were included in her list that are developed from the past experiences, the part-time jobs, and so forth. Much of the time, students don't know how those other experiences are relevant to employers. We help them figure that out. But by students also being proactive in networking and specifically coming to our career fairs network, for example, they'll learn from employers how valuable those skills that they already have are and how relevant they are indeed to the internship or job to which the students are applying. So that's very important. Most of the students I meet, and it's just the norm, and it's been for decades, don't know their skills, don't know their own skills. I always ask students directly, what are your skills? I intentionally do that. And they fumble them. But that's all right in the session with me or with us in our work, because we help them. We tell them the importance of knowing your skills, but tell them that will shape their identity. That shapes their career identity. Self-knowledge, knowing your skills and your skills themselves. And that's what employers want to hear. They hire you for your skills and so forth. So the skills-based hiring will not end. It's always been relevant, but that focus, I don't believe will end. And of course, with that, just having a confident, can-do attitude with good energy always helps out as a supplement to the skills that you bring to the table.
Thank you. So many things to keep in mind when we're engaging and connecting with those employers for that next step. But just being set to translate what we've been doing into their terminology is so important. So thank you for all that. And we're getting set to wrap up here. So are there NIU specific platforms, resources that you just want to throw out there, make students aware of?
Absolutely. So we've been talking a lot about skills and competencies. Career Services or NIU Career Services has launched this last year, I believe. We launched a tool that's called the Husky Career Launchpad. So it is a platform from a company called Suitable. And basically, it's an app where we have created badges that students will be able to get points for completing career-related experiences, career readiness activities, attending events on the 8 NACE career readiness competencies. So things that we said throughout this whole conversation: leadership, communication, teamwork, diversity and equity, technology is another big one, of course. When you enroll as a Husky at NIU, you'll be able to download and use this platform to document your experiences, to reflect on your experiences, to give yourself credit for things that you've already done, but also really kind of do some self-assessment on what you need to develop. So I guess the bigger point that I should say is you can earn digital badges. And the badges are something that you'll be able to add to your LinkedIn profile, for example. You'll be able to talk about in interview answers. You want to make sure that you're talking about in, conversations with employers. And the other thing that I really like about that platform is, what do we call it? You can save like artifacts. So like I was saying, when you're getting ready to transfer, do some self-assessment. What are your accomplishments from your community college days? And then as you're launching into your 4-year institution, keeping track of this stuff is important. So within this Husky Career Launchpad, you might have to upload something, a letter of recommendation from an employer. You may have to write a reflection about what you learned at a specific networking event or something like that. You may have to put a little thought into a plan that you have for follow-up after the career fairs. So they're kind of like assignments, but you're doing it for yourself, and you're documenting those things in this platform. And then when you get closer to graduating, or whether you're getting ready for graduate school, it's all right there in your portfolio, basically. It's actually called a portfolio in this tool. And the other thing that I get excited about just for us as an institution is it's not just career services. This is a campus-wide program. And you might say, well, I've done all the career fairs, but if you go into Husky Career Launchpad and you're like, I want to work more on my technology skills, but I'm not a technology student, there's activities in there. You can learn about Adobe. You can learn about LinkedIn. You can learn about those are the 2 examples. You can learn about those different platforms, and you'll actually be able to complete some activities or go to different events or a workshop or a webinar, so you can grow your skill in that field. We also have our diversity centers that are posting things. We've got our fraternity and sorority life that are posting things. There's honors that's posting things. So there's many, many, many different types of opportunities in there to develop those 8 career readiness competencies. And then that Husky Career Launchpad platform is a way for you to, again, keep track of what you're accomplishing, and also, have it accessible to you when it's time for you to be able to show it and prove it to an employer. So that's a big platform.
Briefly, thank you, Teri. The Forage, which was mentioned earlier, but specifically Forage is one of our platforms of career services, which will allow students to form or engage in job simulations, actual workplace simulations that are created by companies themselves, not by career services, but by actual companies. So students interested in software engineering, auditing, project management, marketing, sales, and so forth can take on project simulations from Wells Fargo Bank, for example, or JP Morgan, or PwC, or any larger engineering tech companies, marketing firms, and so forth. And students can get a credential from that they can then put on their resume or show off on the LinkedIn. But it's actual workplace experience, real deal, concrete, as to what you would experience on an internship and job, so they can try on that job for size. I'll note briefly, Braven, we have UNIV 301, 3-credit course the students can take to work in a semester, taking a deeper dive into their professional development, working with mentor, leadership coach, working on collaborative projects with their classmates to create, for example, business solutions for the Chicago Bulls or for some other major organization or business in the Chicagoland area. And they develop skills there that they then can translate in their interviews for internships and jobs as to what they would offer, how they would offer value to their future employers. So that's there for students. And then we just want to encourage the listeners always that they're welcome to our end of the year career fair coming up on Wednesday, April 22nd. Whether they're just exploring, want to take a peek, or because it's open to NIU students and to the public in general, if they're actually looking for internships or jobs, they're welcome to attend our fair. And you can find all of this on our webpage for career services through the NIU website.
Thank you for all those wonderful resources. They just sound like great tools to help people do the things that we are naturally telling them to do, right? The Husky Career Launchpad, being able to document and track those things, right? We're always telling people as career professionals, do that, right? Document your involvement, document your engagement. And that sounds like just a great place to do that. So even if you don't have access to it, right, you can still be doing those things. You just won't have a nice platform to help you organize it. Forage, right? Simulating careers. That sounds like a great thing that we should be doing. Earlier, we were talking about internships, not quite a simulation, but also the idea of job shadowing, right? Those are things that you could be looking into if you don't have these resources, right? But I love to hear that you at NIU are incorporating these resources to help students go through this in a much easier way. So thank you for all of that. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. But before we do, any last tips, insights you want to share with our listeners? I know we've already covered a lot of ground.
Well, I would say to students on your career journey, you are accountable for your own success. But we walk alongside you and support you in doing so. That's what I would emphasize.
For all our listeners, I gave a really big head nod because I'm in complete agreement, right? You're in control of it, but there's the resources here on this podcast, wherever you're at, to help you go through that process.
And I'll just finish with what Pierre said a couple minutes ago is, make progress. So, and also what Edward said, you don't have to judge yourself against anybody else. If you feel like, yeah, I went from a B to an A this semester, that's progress, right? Or I made 2 more or 10 more or 15 more LinkedIn connections or something like that. That's progress. So, just in, Edward and I, our background and, counseling, it's development. You're moving forward. So that is important. And give yourself credit for what you've accomplished. And if you need a little pep talk once in a while, go talk to your advisor, go talk to a career counselor, talk to a faculty member, talk to your aunt that works in human resources. That's my favorite joke. Somebody already seems to have an aunt that works in human resources. But help them. Talk to them about how I'm making progress, and kind of gets into that self-promotion mode is something you own that career success, as Edward said.
thank you both. We're writing our own career paths, and it's good to know that there are great resources, the two of you included as tools, resources to help them move forward. So thank you both for sharing all this wonderful insight.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Glad that you had us. Thank you.
And thank you to all our listeners. And again, special thanks to Teri and Edward for joining me on the podcast here. There was no listener question in today's episode, but if you do have a question you want to hear answered in a future episode, you could submit it to careerpodcast@cod.edu. We hope you join us for our next episode for more information to help you be career ready.